Hello everyone and welcome to Season 2 of the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan. For this season, we will be bringing guests who will share their own path to happiness. Now we all have a different definition to what happiness means to us, individually speaking. For some, it's a huge mansion by the ocean, while others would prefer excellent health and longevity. Now, in this season, my guests will share their journeys on overcoming challenges and managing to keep moving forward despite the odds. This show will make you laugh or cry, but most importantly, it will inspire you. Now, if they went through tough times and survived, you can too. No matter how hard things may seem, there's always something good coming around the corner. Sometimes painful things can teach us lessons that we didn't think we needed to learn. Today, we have a special guest, Jack Fleming, a military man with very interesting stories related to war. We will delve into more details about his time in the service for the US military and the challenges he faced and the lessons he learned about humanity and the effects of war on human beings. Which brings us to our next important topic that we will cover in this episode, which is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So what is PTSD? It's a disorder characterized by failure to recover after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. Most veterans suffer from PTSD after dealing with the horrors of war. The condition may last months or years, with triggers that can bring back memories of the trauma accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions. Symptoms may include nightmares or flashbacks, avoidance of situation that brings back the trauma, heightened reactivity to stimuli, anxiety, or depressed mood. Treatment for PTSD may include different types of psychotherapy as well as medication to manage symptoms. Jack will share with us his journey managing these past experiences and has still found his way to reaching his ultimate happiness. Jack, thank you so much for being at the studio today and welcome to the Happiness Journey.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. Glad to be here.
We're glad you're here. So tell me a little bit more about your experience with dealing with PTSD. And of course, knowing that PTSD exists, why did you decide to join the military?
I joined the military out of a patriotic duty, as most other veterans do. I graduated high school, turned down a swimming scholarship, started going to college, and money was going out fast. Working 2 or 3 jobs, and I saw a commercial for $25,000 for college, and I said, it's time for me to sign up. Now, I followed in a long history of it. My grandfather served in World War II during D-Day in Normandy. My father was a loadmaster on a C-130 for the Air Force during Vietnam, and I never really thought about joining the military, but it was time for me to get away and go see the world.
Mm-hmm. And that was a good opportunity.
It was, it very was.
Now, what kind of training do they give to the soldiers, to the military people?
I'm a unique situation where I volunteered 3 times. I volunteered once to serve in the Army. I volunteered the second time to attempt and complete Army Airborne School. I volunteered a third time to serve on active duty airborne status, which means you have to jump all the time and train at all the time. So by doing that, I did volunteer 3 times. I made it through all the training, and I served with the 82nd Airborne Division.
So you're a paratrooper?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how are your knees? They're still functioning?
No cracks. So
no cracks. I heard
good.
that the ACL get a big hit on those jumps, and a lot of people have knee surgery or knee replacement.
I mean, my knees and my ankles do tell me when the weather's coming or changing, but nothing wrong. That's why they run so much, to make them strong so you can handle the landings. So,
oh, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, I know that when it comes to being enlisted in the Army and when it comes to dealing with the potential issue that has to do with PTSD, do they train you mentally for it, or do they at least tell you what you should expect when you're going to be facing situations?
My job was a forward observer, which means I was the eyes of the artillery. I actually saw and directed where field artillery was going to be fired, close air support or naval gunfire. So I did have to go through the Army's version of a psych eval prior to even starting my enlistment, and I passed, which means they judged that I could handle the trauma and the stress that I was most likely to be, have encountered as part of my job. Other jobs, 11 Bravo, infantry, cook, truck driver, supply, didn't really have those things just because you learn about other jobs as you get into the military. But I didn't really understand it, but I said, sure, I'll take a test. I passed the test and I was able to join. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
And then during the time that you already, or after being enlisted, do they continue giving you some kind of training to see if you're dealing or handling it correctly?
The training they put you under is waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and running 5 miles, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups a day, 100 burpees, low crawling through high weeds on a hill in North Carolina. So by the time it's breakfast time at 5:30 or 6, you've worked out all the energy out of you. So.
And is there like class like environment, like which you sit down in front of a teacher and they tell you more about the?
Well, basic training is basic combat training to get you ready for combat. That's basic training. I completed basic training in Fort Bliss, Texas. It was really hot. I lost a lot of weight. Had to give half of my food to Tex from California. He was a skinny guy that never could gain more weight, but I was always big boned and husky, but they thought I was fat and they wanted to make me not fat. Then Field Artillery School at Fort Benning, actually at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where it was cold and windy, and then jump school at Fort Benning and my duty station at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Interesting. Now, if we tackle the PTSD in itself, when did you leave the Army? When were you done with it?
I exited the military October 23rd, 1994, which was my ETS date.
Okay.
And I had ETS'd from South Korea, where they flew me from South Korea to Seattle, and then I flew from Seattle back home to Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up most of my life. So after that, it took me, now that I look back, it took me a good 10 or 12 years to kind of get the military and that high speed and that high strung and that you're invincible mentality out of my system. I still feel invincible. I still do crazy things. I still do things I enjoy that other people say, wow, why are you doing that? It's just because I've learned to conquer the fear and the pain of those things.
And what kind of like daredevil things do you do that other people will find a bit like overwhelming?
I would jump off a railroad bridge. I would climb a tree to the very top. There's just things that normal people really wouldn't do that I think is fun. I enjoy them. I enjoy the adrenaline rush, but it's the danger versus the, you don't really imagine yourself getting hurt or getting injured. You just say, oh, that looks like fun, and you do it. And in a way, it's kind of a twisted thing, but
to say the least.
But, you have all different types of people out there. Some are twisted, some are normal, some don't even leave their office. I like to live, so that's why.
So you said that the Army or the military actually helped you perceive the world in a different way that you didn't see before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a veteran of the Gulf War, and it was really hot there. So imagine yourself in an environment, it's 138, 140 degrees.
Oh, God.
And you're drinking desalinated water with limited food supply. You're eating MREs, and you're training in the desert, and your chemical alarms are going off. So you have to don your full MOP4 chemical gear, your mask, your charcoal suit, your gloves, your boots, and it's just hell on earth. And then they lit the oil fires.
Oh, God.
So the oil fires,
Add to the heat.
Well, the oil fires it was hell. It was hell. But you were there next to your fellow soldier, and you just had to keep going, and you lived through it. So but seeing that society collapse, and seeing death up close, and seeing just the horrors of human nature, it makes you look at things a whole lot differently, and it changed me, good ways and bad ways, to where it did take me 10 or 12 years to kind of get out of my system after that. But
And how do you feel now after those 12 years? Do you still feel the kind of like the triggers that brings you back those memories, and how do you deal to manage them?
well, every April 1st, April Fool's Day, is the day I landed at JFK, New York, where I actually came home from the Gulf War. So that's my alive day, where I actually made it to U.S. soil after being deployed to a war. Every April 1st, ever since I came home, I've always
Celebrated, yeah.
I've either had a party, or I went for a walk in the woods, or I spent time with the family. Or I took a day off of work, played sick. When I worked for a corporation, now that I work for myself, I can play sick any day I want, but
Exactly.
April 1st is my alive day.
Wow. Now, did you have to take medication during the time that you, after you left or after you exited the military, to be able to deal with the symptoms, or did you go through like psychotherapy sessions, as I mentioned previously?
I didn't officially go to the VA hospital or to a family doctor or to any other doctor to get treated for PTSD. I knew I was different. I knew that things would make me angry and take it to the rage level, like faster than I've ever realized before. It wasn't the small things that would trigger things. It was the big things that put me under pressure, that basically allowed me to function. So it wasn't the small things, it was the big things that, I was cool and calm, but it was the small things that would kind of trigger those things. But it took a while, and I realized it over time.
So anger management is a part of your...
No official,
Okay.
no official anger management, just hard work, physical labor, cut a tree down, do some yard work, pick up something heavy, just go and get it out of your system.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, talking about experiences, what would you say you personally learned from all of what the military offered to you in terms of discipline, in terms of what you've seen, the horrors that you've seen, and how did all this change your perception towards humans?
That most people don't realize that there's a fine line between humanity and chaos. Small triggers can happen to collapse a society like Iraq, or trigger, mass hysteria. Human nature is very, very odd. And I've seen the best part of human nature, and I've seen the worst part of human nature. And that's what really makes you stop and think about how you're living your life on a daily basis.
And how is that in terms of your approach now, or what was your approach then? Do you find that things do not bother you the same way that they did before? Do you feel that things trigger you in a more, or is it more amplified, more, I would say, I don't know, how do you react to things now that you didn't before?
I think the early years out of the military, I would react in a more aggressive and inflamed manner. Now, I just kind of isolate myself. If I see somebody whose face looks like somebody that was dead, that I remember, or if I see a black puff of smoke that comes out of the back of a bus that reminds me of being engulfed in black oil smoke, or I hear a loud bang, I'm like, that's not really that loud. I mean, I was witness to the largest explosion in modern warfare. It was the ammo supply dump at Qamishli, Iraq, where it just blew up 1,000 meters square into the earth. And it was all gone. It was all into the air. It was just the largest explosion ever. So it's not so much the triggers now, it's just that dealing with relationships. So I give credit to my wife, my children, my mom and dad, my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunts and uncles. They knew that I was different, and they gave me a respect that I was different. It was some of my friends that didn't recognize that I was different. They didn't really like to do the things that I like to do anymore. So, dealing with PTSD, it does take a toll on you, and it does cost relationships if you let it affect you. I never pursued the VA or any type of medication or even therapy about it. I just kind of worked it out on my own. And, maybe if I look back, I could have saved some relationships. I could have, maybe done things differently, had different reactions and results in my life. But I am who I am. And basically, I was there to serve. And I proudly served it. And I would do it again. Even though all the hardship and the pain and all that, I would do it again because it made me who I am today.
Is there different levels of PTSD or gravity in terms of some people have very mild PTSD while others have very severe?
Some people suffer PTSD from being in a car accident.
Okay.
Some people suffer PTSD from seeing somebody hit by a car. I made the decision to jump out of airplanes. After the first time, I was scared every single time. It was dealing with the fear and dealing with the level of stress and anxiety and not knowing what was going to happen the next day, whether you're going to die the next minute, whether you're a friend next to you, you're a fellow soldier next to you, or the people that you were responsible for. A forward observer is responsible for 200 infantry troops. So, not knowing if our planning and scheduling would protect them. So I think any trauma in life can be recoverable. Is there a pill that helps? Maybe, if there's a brain imbalance, if there's a nutritional imbalance, but that's why I feel strongly, and I'll speak out strongly against some of the treatments the government has proposed for veterans where pharmacological therapy is not the answer. It's like talking and just making sure people are on the level with things. 22 veteran suicides a day.
What that's what I was about to ask you.
It's a combination of things. I remember my grandfather, Jack Fleming. He was a World War II vet. He said, "You know something? We were the first to ever drink freeze-dried coffee. They didn't know what it would do to the public, whether the process of making coffee into freeze-dried coffee would cause any harmful side effects. So they gave them to the troops as guinea pigs to try for the first time." God. I said, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, but freeze-dried coffee is today because troops had them first." So what medicine's out there, what drugs are out there to help, try to help somebody by altering their brain chemistry, to have depression. Life is full of ups and downs. A pill is not going to fix depression, but if you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you will suffer from PTSD and you will most likely kill yourself whether you're taking a pill or not. It's about how you deal with that stress and your support unit. So I had a good support unit, and they just said he's crazy, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not crazy. That's just the way I feel," and I kept on going.
Well, now the people who exited the military, the veterans, who exited the same time as you, did any of your, I would say, friends during the war, did they commit suicide? Did you have any that experienced this extreme?
During the first Gulf War, there wasn't so much suicide. I think the suicides happened after the Iraq invasion, the second time, and the Afghanistan invasion. Just because you have so many people signing up because of 9/11 and their service, that they think that being a soldier is like playing a video game. And it's not. It's not like camping or hiking either.
Yeah.
Being a soldier of that caliber is, learning about and surpassing 25 to 30 different levels of pain that you put your body under, and just to build you up. So I think a lot of it was patriotism that caused these youngsters to join, and reverting to drugs and the VA treatment to help for symptoms. And it was just a combination of things that said, hey, it's time to go. You got to remember too, Dan, that all veterans are trained killers. That's basic training, whether they're Air Force, Marines,
SEAL,
whatever it is. They're all trained killers. They are taught how to kill in basic training. And if they want to turn and make the most selfish act possible and kill themselves, take life away from themselves, then, they're trained to do it. But it's just a shame. And whatever I can do to help combat that, now that I'm older and I've survived through that, I'll do whatever I can to help.
But do you feel like in the moment, the reason why they're trained killers is because they feel that if they don't kill, they will get killed. So it's kind of more of a self-defense to a certain extent. But when they leave, when they exit the military, do they still have that in their mind that, oh, whoever I see like road rage, are they gonna go and kill someone because?
No, I don't. Whenever you see somebody getting fired, and then a year later or 6 months later they go back and they kill 15 coworkers.
Yeah, post office.
Yeah, that could happen to anybody, whether they're a veteran or not. But the news, the media have always said that if something is done bad by a veteran, that he suffers from PTSD. And that's a cop-out, that's a crutch, that's something that they're programmed to say. You know, people get upset every day about something that was either done to them or not done for them, and it's up to them to react. For them to kill based on that reaction, or for getting fired from a job, is irresponsible and immature, just like committing suicide. You know, committing suicide is the most selfish act, in my view, that anybody could ever commit, because they're not thinking about how it affects everybody else.
Yeah, because they're gone, but the family, the friends,
Sure.
that affects them in a more long term.
Yes.
But is it fair to say that because of the overwhelming feeling that they have of having killed so many people during a war or whatever else, don't you feel that maybe they could not handle it, maybe they could not deal with those kind of, the kind of stress that any other human being will not be able to handle if they have experienced the same thing as you did?
A man once told me that it takes 4 years for an Olympic runner to get up to the level to be able to compete in the Olympics. 4 years. If he doesn't train after he's won that race, in 90 days, he'll be right back to the physical and mental condition that he was without that training. So when you leave the military and you're not used to that, you know, and you're not in a training environment and you're not being told when to eat, when to sleep, when to run, all that things, you know, when you're used to a regimen,
yeah.
you need to have enough of that in your life to where you want to be free from that. I still have friends that he's command sergeant major, and I met him, we were both in the military 2 or 3 years, and he stayed in all this time. I've been out 26 years, but he stayed in, and now he's getting ready to retire as a command sergeant major. I don't know if he's even knows what he's going to be doing, but he's been through that regimen all those years. For me, I was ready to leave. So it's all about the human ability to accept things that
And embrace changes.
and embrace changes, and not be fearful of changes. I never had fear. I always had worry, but I wasn't afraid to act. Okay. So there's fear that paralyzes you. They train that fear out of you. You know, when you jump, you have other people that are jumping with you, and if you don't jump, it's called a jump refusal. So when you have your chute on and you're up in the air, even when you're training and you don't jump, it's called a jump refusal. There's harsh and severe reactions because you're wasting the Air Force's gasoline, you're wasting the pilot's time, you're wasting the jump master's time, you're wasting everybody else's time because you're up there to train. You put your chute on, you go up there to jump. You better jump. And I did every time. So.
And plus, if you do not jump, the people behind you, they will say, oh my God, does he know something that we don't know?
Yeah, it's 800 feet down. I don't want to jump either. But we signed up for it, and that's what we got to do. So you do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, and you move on.
Now, those who actually leave this environment, this regimented environment, like discipline, when you're allowed to eat, when you're allowed to sleep, and so on and so forth, do they deal with any PTSD, even though they were not the one killing people or seeing the horrors of war? I mean, because of no longer being in an environment that is very strict and going back home. And now, no one is telling them what to do. No one is telling them when to wake up or when to sleep or when to eat.
Dr. Dan, I'm a Gulf War veteran. I am not a professional veteran. And what I mean by that is that there are some members of society that serve in the military and they make it their way of life after the military.
Okay.
People were a police officer for 2 years. Then they got fired because they did something stupid, but they act like a cop for the rest of their lives.
I see.
I'm not a professional veteran. I'm a guy who did what I did and had fun. And, you know, sometimes I regret things that I've done, but I didn't because I was there to do it. Just like now, there's paratroopers deployed to Afghanistan. So, you know, we all had our turn, and I made it through. I have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. I'm grateful. I'm grateful just to be alive. And when that realization came in, you have to step back and look at your own situation and realize that I made it, and I'm still alive, you know?
What advice would you give to those who have gone through the same thing as well, or those who are dealing with PTSD?
Never, ever feel sorry for yourself. Never, ever depend on somebody else to do something for you. Just like your message on the Happyness Show is to make that change yourself. Take the initiative. If you want to change, you will change. And, you know, I'm happy. I'm happy as I've ever been in my whole life. I could tell you when it's going to rain, but that's part of my service that I endure. You know, just go and try to be your best every day. And if you can't help yourself, try helping others first. And by doing that, you'll feel appreciated, and eventually you'll help yourself.
Wow, that's really, really deep, and that's, I cannot even say it better myself.
Okay.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. I would like to thank our guest for his time with us in our TV studio. Thank you very much, Jack, for coming and inspiring our viewers who are dealing with PTSD and all other difficult challenges related to this disorder. Now, we hope you have enjoyed today's episode. I'm very, very excited about season 2 of the Happyness Journey, and full of inspirational stories just like the one we had today. Now, here are a few concluding words of wisdom. From where you are right now, listening to this message, more held and supported by energies unimaginable, all commanded by you and your choice to think big or small, rich or poor, confident or afraid, easy or hard, fun or boring, play or work, here or there, now or then, fast or slow, ice or no ice. It's all your call. You make a decision on how you allow life to take control of you, or you taking control of your own life. The choice is yours. Make the right decision. Peace, love, and happiness. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you have yourself a wonderful day.